We are live. Well, good morning. I'm John Casper with the Oshkosh Chamber. Thank you for all joining us this morning for our weekly virtual town hall meeting that we have. Been holding these every Thursday around 10 o'clock. We had some great guests over the past several weeks, and today we have two folks joining us from the education world. We have our Chancellor, Andy Leavitt, Chancellor of UW Oshkosh, and we're happy to have Andy join us. And we also have Dr. Vickie Cartwright, Superintendent of Oshkosh Area School District, joining us. It's been what's going on in education has been something that's been affecting everybody with, K-12 being at home, with university students, being educated virtually. It's been an interesting and challenging last few weeks. So I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions. What we'll do is our audience is muted right now. If you have questions, please use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen and input your question. And then after Andy and Vickie are done, we will go through those and ask questions. Not sure how many we get. We've been getting quite a few from the audience, but we'll ask as many as we can given the time that's allotted. So, so with that, I think I'm going to throw it over to Chancellor Andy Leavitt. And if Andy, if you just want to take it from there, we'd appreciate it.
Well, thank you, John, and good morning to everyone. I certainly appreciate being here today. Wow. This has been obviously quite an event for everybody, businesses and certainly education alike. University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh has been profoundly impacted, as you can imagine, as we made the decision in March to move all of our face-to-face classes to what we call the alternative delivery method. And that's simply a way for us to provide the social distancing that's necessary on campus by essentially emptying it out. We did that. As a matter of fact, tomorrow is the last day of classes, and then we're going to hold commencement on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. It will be virtual, so you won't have any trouble with parking. But at the same time, the students will be scattered all over the state, all over the country. And we've put a lot of time and effort into this, and I think that's going to be something that students will, will appreciate. I know it's certainly not the same thing as a face-to-face commencement. The decision to move in this direction was not taken lightly. A lot like a business, we lost a lot of money in terms of the income, the revenue that we would normally generate just in our usual business practices. And on top of that, of course, we had to refund, or we gladly refunded, I should say, the part of the room and board that the students had not yet used. And so we, as a result, had developed a number, a pretty good sized number that related to COVID-19 expenses, somewhere between $7 to $8 million is what we predict between now and June 30th. And so in order to address this kind of a shortfall, we've had to do some very difficult things financially. In order to, we need to maintain the continuity of instruction, of course, which is what we're doing. But at the same time, we've sent most of our employees home, and that we have what are called Tier 1 employees on our campus currently, and those are just, as you can imagine, public safety, some facilities folks, and some other critical people who must be on campus in order to tend to some campus function that's absolutely necessary. Most of us are able to work from home. I'm actually a Tier 2 employee, meaning that I can do my job fully from home. And as a matter of fact, I've really, other than walking the dog, I haven't been out much in over a month. I really haven't. I've stuck pretty close to home here. And we, of course, conduct all of our business, as you do, in businesses on these computers with the Brady Bunch squares and the different platforms that we use. We did have to institute furloughs. So once it was decided that we were going to be off campus, and there were employees who can work off campus, but also we have a large number of employees who cannot work off campus. And so there was a limit to how long we could pay them with what we called COVID-19 leave before that ran out, and then we had to institute furloughs. So there are approximately 700 employees right now who are furloughed at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. 180 of those are consecutive day furloughs, meaning that they are out continuously from May 4th through the 31st of August. And it's a very, very difficult situation for them. My heart goes out to them. We simply didn't have a choice, as you know, many businesses don't. We have over 500 employees that are currently on what's called intermittent furlough, which is we ask that they take 2 days off a week, or they don't get paid for the 2 days and they don't work. So as a result, we're able to save enough money between those two groups to stabilize us financially. So we're going to end the year in good shape. And now it becomes about next fall. It becomes about how do we reopen next fall? Are we going to be face-to-face? Are we going to be completely online? Those scenarios are currently being wrestled with internally within the university. We have a great group of people called the Recovery Task Force that are working on just those questions. And we are working in concert with the Winnebago County Health Department. We're working certainly want to work with city officials. We're also working with the local medical centers. Dr. John Newman, who was on this very broadcast last week, is somebody we're consulting with closely. We're talking about bringing 11,000 people back together in Oshkosh. And of course, we have our two great campuses in Fox and Fond du Lac, but we're bringing a lot of people together in one place at one time requires an awful lot of thought and planning and expertise in order to do that. So sometime in the summer, between I would say the middle of June and the middle of July, we, working with the university system, will make a decision as to whether or not we will open in some sort of modified face-to-face format, or whether we will continue to be on some sort of modified alternative delivery. Clearly, our preference would be to open face-to-face to the extent that we can, but the health and safety of all of us, the faculty, staff, and students of the institution are paramount, and therefore that has to guide our decision. If in fact we end up being on an alternative delivery method, then we want to look to see how we can modify that given any changing circumstances we may have in order to enhance that experience. So it's a difficult time in higher education across the country. And when I'm telling people, other than the decision that was made at California State University just yesterday, if anybody's telling you they know exactly what they're going to do next fall to open their university, they don't. They really don't. It's going to take time. You're going to have to see how the disease progresses over the summer, if our social distancing continues to work. So it's a lot of factors are going to go into making this decision. CSU, California State University, simply made the decision they're going to be online in the fall, and they're a 500,000 student system, and that there is some beauty in that kind of decision in the sense that it's the finality of it, and now they can move towards trying to make that the best possible experience, and they already know a lot of the variables in order to do that. We're not opting not to do that. We really do want to try to do face-to-face here in the Fox Valley on the UWO Fond du Lac campus, UWO Fox Cities campus, and the Oshkosh campus. So again, it's about the students. So this is a week of celebration for us. We will graduate almost 2,500 students this year. 2,500 students who have an associate's, a baccalaureate, a master's, or a doctorate. And that is a huge amount of talent. And one of the things we're very proud of is that we drive talent in the Fox Valley region in northeastern Wisconsin. The UW Oshkosh is a major, major player in that. We need to get back to normal, and we will. It's going to take a little time to do that, whatever that new normal might be that we're all talking about. But I sure do appreciate everybody's support. We had a Titans Rise campaign where we've raised over $100,000 of funds from our alumni in the community to help students in need. Many of our students worked on our campus, and though we did pay them out to an extent, they lost their jobs, and as a result, they're not available. They're not eligible for unemployment. So therefore, we're helping them out any way we can. So with that, John, I'll turn it back over to you, but that's sort of the UWO in a nutshell.
Okay, well, great, Andy. I appreciate that. I know we've had some questions that have been coming in offline, and we'll catch up with those when we after Vickie goes. So, Dr. Cartwright, if you'd like to take it from here, we'd appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to share some important information related to the Oshkosh Area School District. As many of you know, the district started our Grab and Go food program on March 17th, and our Learning at Home initiative also started on the following day on March 18th. There's some things I think that we want to emphasize, because there are, though both the Chancellor and myself our fundamental business is educating students, there are some differences between our organizations. As you heard with the Chancellor, he has students who live on campus, and they're adults, and whereas we are educating children. And we obviously don't have people living on campus or anything to that effect. So how we operate is different. And even from the state and the directions that are provided to us are different. So last night, we know the state Supreme Court had overturned the Safer at Home order, but for that, it does not apply to school districts. And I think that's really important for clarification for people to understand. Is first and foremost, the Wisconsin schools are unable to hold any in-person events until after June 30th. While we are closed, what's important for people to understand is that we are still providing education. We're still doing virtual instruction and at-home learning for all of our students across the entire district. And while our schools are closed for in-person learning and events through the end of the 1920 school year, the end of the school year is defined as June 30th, 2020 under the Wisconsin state statute. In fact, in the ruling that was made from the Supreme Court, it was actually in their footnotes, and footnote 6 as well as 21 of the ruling, that the restrictions previously in place for school districts remain in place. On those restrictions are in effect until the end of the school year, i.e. on June 30th at this time. So we've been working on that in the background and really taking that to stride as to what does that mean, what are the implications, what are the plans that we have to do in order to ensure that we continue to be proactive and that we continue to provide educational services as well as other types of services to our students and their families. From the time that the school buildings were closed to students and staff members, our custodians have been busy cleaning all of our facilities. Additionally, once it was determined that students would not be returning to a face-to-face instructional model in our schools, we went ahead and pursued a lot of our contracted work that was supposed to occur over the summer. We went ahead and rescheduled that to occur right now. The reason we're saying that that's important is because we're actually realizing a cost savings by rescheduling it for that work to occur right now. So this is money that we had allocated for these projects now is not costing as much. So we're really making sure that we capitalize on lower costs and leading to cost saving measures. Other things that people have to understand, I'm going to loop back just a moment as well, is that under the current Safer at Home order, students for school districts, K-12 school districts, students and families are not allowed into our school buildings prior to June 30th. Therefore, we have created a plan and we will be communicating that plan on a school by school basis. In other words, you will hear about the plan from your school principal to our families about retrieving their items and returning district-owned items back to their schools. We know that though we opened up the facility, we closed officially at the conclusion of March 13th, and then the following Monday and Tuesday, we opened up our facilities during designated windows of time for families and students to come and retrieve belongings. We also recognized that during that point in time, the thought was that this was going to be a short-term closure and we would be coming back in person. So there's still a lot of things inside our schools. And so we're trying to be respectful of that and to make sure that we return those items to the best of our ability. And for those students who are not participating in summer school, to retrieve their Chromebooks and technology, and then other items, like band uniforms, athletic uniforms, those type of things. So related to summer school, let's go ahead and jump into that real fast, is yesterday we did release an announcement to all the families who had previously signed up for summer school that all in-person summer school programming for high school students, which was scheduled in sessions June 8th through July 21st or 25th, is going to occur virtually. So we will continue to provide summer school for our high schoolers. It's just going to be in that virtual environment. Specific information regarding what that coursework is going to look like, how instruction will occur, again, was also sent to our high school families yesterday. All in-person summer school programming for elementary and middle school students, this is pre-K, 4-year-olds all the way through 8th grade, which was scheduled for June 15th through July 9th, has been canceled at this point in time. However, the district is exploring the option of providing elementary and middle school summer school programming, but in a virtual environment. The virtual options and times may be different from the originally planned programming, and that will be due to student interest and staff availability. In order to determine that interest level for our families and kindergarten through 8th grade, we also sent them an interest level survey so we can gauge what that level of interest will be. One of the things that we recognized, and you heard me start off right away with, is a need for our community is related to our grab and go program. So our grab and go program, we're very committed to assisting our community as a whole. We recognize that the meal kits that are created, they're created in a manner to be eaten as a whole meal and not to be parsed out, because when that happens, you lose some of that nutritional value within that meal kit. We also recognize that, food scarcity is a real thing, and that if we did not provide meals to the adults within the household, or the non-students within the household, there was a possibility that those meal kits would be broken up. The nutritional values would be lost. And so this is a unique approach. We're probably one of the very few school districts that took this approach. But again, we're really committed to our community and to doing everything that we can in order to support our community to the best of our knowledge, the best of our ability. So as of Tuesday, we have served over approximately 112,000 meals into the Oshkosh community. Of that number, approximately 28,600 of them have gone to adults. And to do that, to provide that to our adults, we did go into a fundraising mode, as you might say, early on, and we're back into that fundraising mode again. Just to give you an idea, the food costs to provide meals to adults, so it's just the meals alone, not including the labor costs associated with that, as of Tuesday, was approximately $83,500. So that's just giving you an idea of what we're doing in order to meet this need. So we have also partnered with the Food Pantry to provide meals for families beyond the meals being given by the district, because our meals are for breakfast and lunch. They do not include dinner, although it is for 7 days a week. And this is something right now that we intend on providing student meals through the traditional summer school dates. As I mentioned before, we're currently fundraising related to be able to provide meals to non-students during that same time period. However, given the most recent occurrence, we're kind of in a pause moment on that, as far as just to see what information will be coming forward from us from the Winnebago County Health Department, and how to operate going forward from there. I think it's important also for people to understand that for any event that the school district is doing. So for example, last Thursday and Friday, we had an opportunity for our high school seniors to come to the high schools to pick up their caps and gowns. Any event such as that we do, we have to go through a tiered process. We have to have permission from the Winnebago County Health Department. We also consult with our legal counsel on this, and we also consult with our risk management insurance on this to ensure that all the actions that are occurring with the district are in alignment and would be covered in the event that there was something to occur. Learning at home, let me talk about that a little bit. First and foremost, oh my gosh, Oshkosh community, we are enormously grateful that back in 2014, you passed our operational referendum. That operational referendum was for approximately $4 million, and approximately 1.45 million of that was to provide for our technology. So that is how we were able to do our digital devices one-to-one for all of our students in grades 3 through 12. We've been doing that for a few years now, and we are able to keep up and refreshing those devices for those students. And we are immensely grateful that we had that available to us, because our learning at home would definitely look different had we not had those devices available to our students. The Learning Without Limits initiative, as I mentioned before, it started in 2014. And not only was it for the devices, but it also was for the professional development and supports for our teachers so that they can properly use it in order to teach in that virtual environment. Because of our proactive planning in February regarding the COVID-19 in the US, we were monitoring that, and we're able to kind of recognize that this was something that was potentially going to be coming our way. We were early in ordering some of the technology that right now is not available for a lot of people in school districts. So for example, we were able to fast track our purchase and delivery of our Khajiit hotspots to ensure that those students who have a need were able to have internet. So that way we can continue that virtual learning for those students regardless of their economic background. Now that action obviously did impact us because it was an unanticipated expense. It cost the district, approximately $55,000, and that's per year that we're doing that if we're having to go forward with this. So we know that that's something that we will continue to look at for ways in which we can apply for grants, or even like the CARES Act, in order to get some financial relief so that we can provide those. Right now, we know that we don't have Chromebooks or those type of devices for our students in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. So again, we'll be looking for opportunities in which to provide that type of technology to our students in the event that in the future we have to go back into a virtual environment. So it's not just the technology piece, but it's also the professional development with our teachers. So that way we can continue to go forward and ensure that we're providing quality education to all of our students. Our educators right now, they're just making so much effort to connect and engage with their students on an ongoing basis. With our district, we're extremely fortunate to have the staff that we have. We were much more prepared than many districts around us in order to go into the environment for which we're providing instruction right now and engaging with our students. So for example, not only are we providing instruction, but our mental health supports, we're still reaching out to our students, for which we had previously recognized that or had been providing services for those students related to mental health. We all, likewise with our nursing staff, we're very fortunate that we have top-notch health providers within the district as well. So they're reaching out to students on an as-needed basis for those, especially with those that we know that have some complicating factors. We've been able to provide, continue to provide some of our special education services, but again, in a virtual environment. In addition to that, we're providing ongoing technology support to students and staff members whose device may need some attention, so they can come to designated places in order to swap that out. Related to the budget right now, we're kind of in a wait and see kind of mode as to what is occurring potentially this summer and what the potential implications are going to be for us going in the future. I think it's really important to remind people a couple things. Please remember that Oshkosh Area School District is considered to be a low revenue district, meaning that we're one that receives less money per student than the state average. And we have been like this for many, many years. That means that our budget and our resources are very tight. We're hoping that as legislators are potentially looking to make budget cuts, potentially for school district budgets, we're hoping that they look at this maybe in a different approach than what we've seen in the past. We're hoping that they don't make like a unilateral decision. In other words, okay, $100 off the top for every single district per student, or $179 off the top for every single student across the district, because a decision like that is going to have a disproportionate impact on Oshkosh than it would per se another school district who is when you're looking at the student revenues already at the state average or well above the state average. Because we're below the state average, a unilateral cut does have a greater impact on the Oshkosh Area School District. So again, we're hopeful that maybe as they're meeting and making possible decisions, that fact will be under consideration for them. With the Oshkosh Area School District, we know that we are one of the larger employers within the Oshkosh area. It was a priority for us to ensure that we kept our staff members employed to the best of our ability. If layoffs had occurred, we knew that it would negatively impact the local economy here and within Oshkosh, as well as businesses, at a much greater rate than what we're currently experiencing. So we started utilizing our non-instructional staff members differently and in unique ways. Staff members are and will be working the hours for which they are being paid, and they are aware of that. So we're trying to be very proactive, and we're trying to be very mindful of our community. Our community has always been there for us, and we want to be there for our community as well. By taking this approach, by the way, we've also set ourselves up to take full advantage of the CARES Act for reimbursement and to fill some of our needs, as I've mentioned before, such as like the one-to-one digital devices for kindergarten through second grade, ensuring that all of our students, families that have a need, have those Wi-Fi hotspots, equipping our classrooms with necessary technology in the event that we have to provide face-to-face instruction in a different format than what we've done in the past. So those are some of the things that we're looking at right now, and some of the approaches that we're considering on where to apply in order to ensure that the district is made whole in this process. So again, we are incredibly appreciative of the support that we have been receiving from the community as a whole. And I'm certainly hopeful that you're seeing that we are trying to make sure that we are providing this back to our community as well. fall plans, because I know that's the hot question on the table. What does it look like, when school starts back up in September? Well, we are currently, we're actually planning 3 different ways right now. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of us working on this. One is the face-to-face format, basically going back to what we were doing before. The second one being, no, we're not able to do that. We have to go into a virtual environment. So what type of professional development do we want to offer to our staff now and over the course of the summer in order to ensure that we continue and provide quality instruction to our students? And then maybe a mixed mode, a mixed modality as to a hybrid between those 2 models. So those are the things that we're exploring and looking as to what it may look like going in the future.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. And Andy, if you can get back online, that would be great. We did have some questions come in, and I'd like to some are directed directly to Vicki and Andy. So I'll go back and forth. Vicki, question that came up is, when does the Oshkosh Area School District budget need to be finalized? And are you applying a sensitivity analysis to adjust the district's budget to various state funding support levels? I mean, I think basically they're saying, your shared revenues would be impacted. So what are you doing to manage that in anticipation?
So some of the things that we are doing right now is we've been proactive. Prior to this pandemic coming forward, we had already negotiated, for example, we already started having, not negotiated, but having conversations with our different employee groups. We were on track in order to be able to offer them full CPI, the Consumer Price Index. We were looking to potentially, make sure that they had the step and lane change for years of employment within the district. So those were some of the things that we were on target for having, bringing it to the board for final approval, because our school board does make those final approvals, but that was going to be the recommendation to our board. At this point in time, we've hit pause. And we're not moving forward with those actions. In the event once we have more information as to what the potential budget impact is going to be with the school district, we want to ensure that we are as cost conscientious as possible. Another thing that we've done in the past, for example, is each year we analyze our personal days for our staff across the board. And each year we analyze whether or not we have, when this originally started many years ago, what was happening was people were taking their personal leave and we were not able to find substitute teachers in order to cover their class. And so the thought was many years ago is that if we're in a position where we're not able to find substitute teachers, what can we do in order to incentivize our staff not to use their personal leave during when student contact days? And so every year we analyze that need as to whether or not that continues to be a need or not related to substitute teachers. And then from there, if it is a need, then at that point in time, we pay them out for that day. So for this year, we've already informed our staff that we're not paying out. Again, this is a year-by-year analysis and decision. So that's another way in which we're also ensuring that we're being cost conscientious and ensuring that we're trying to capitalize as much as possible on that. And I know that people are probably also saying, well, you must have some cost savings that are occurring. You just talked about substitute teachers, those kind of things. That's correct. But at the same time, with our food nutrition services and the grab and go program, even if we were not feeding the adults, so I'll make that crystal clear, even if we were not feeding the adults, the grab and go program, the cost of the foods associated with that is greater than when we're in session. And yes, while we get reimbursed for our student meals under this program, we're not getting reimbursed the full amount because the cost of the food is higher. Our labor force right now is higher in order to run the program the way that we're doing currently. And so we're in the hole on that. So some of the cost savings that we're what we're doing from there is to be able to make sure that we make the food and nutrition department whole from some of the areas which we're having savings, such as substitute teachers. But beyond that, we're not really getting a lot of savings. Please remember, our budget, for the most part, is 80% staff related. So there's not a lot of things happening on that. And we're continuing to pay a good portion of many of our contracted services as written into the contract.
Okay, Andy, question came in as regards to enrollment and for the upcoming freshman class. You know, where does that stand right now for fall? Are we up or down, or are we tracking as usual?
That's a great question. Obviously, students are the lifeblood of any institution, certainly ours. You know, you always hope for the best and plan for the worst. And we're actually looking pretty good. I have to say, in terms of enrollment, we're recruiting a pretty strong first-year class. Our classes range somewhere between 1,600 to 1,700 students as a first-year class. So we're right in that, and we feel good where we're at. The enrollment on the Fond du Lac campus is way up, which is something we're just thrilled about. And the enrollment on the Fox Cities campus is about the same. The big question for next fall is what's going to happen with continuing students. So we have students who are in classes right now and who will finish class tomorrow, and then we'll be off for the summer. Though we do offer summer school online during this year. So really, if they show up as they normally do, and we think that they will, because we're looking at the number of students who've already pre-registered for courses next year, it's looking pretty good. In other words, if we could only be down a couple of % in terms of overall enrollment, then I think we're right in the fight in terms of the budget next year. Of course, depending on what the state does on their side, you know, obviously they have revenue collection issues of their own. So I'm hopeful, but at the same time, we have a budget plan for, you know, in case something were to happen, but we don't believe it will. I think we're going to come in with some great students, and we'll be where we need to be.
Okay, great. I'm gonna put a shameless plug in for Big Apple Bagel here. So great coffee. Anyway, Vickie, there came in a follow-up call to the first question. A follow-up question came in, and it seems like all the ideas are going to cost more money. And I guess trying to drill down a little bit more, is there a contingency plan to reduce spending if current levels of support is reduced?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question because I want to make sure I was I'm clear. Yes, we're doing that right now. What I was talking about where we're hitting pause on the CPI increase, as well as step and lane changes for years of experience. That right there is approximately $2 million, a little bit over $2 million as far as the savings. That's why we're hitting pause, because we need to overall see what is potentially coming to us in the future, and making decisions in a manner that is most beneficial to us as far as our budget is concerned. So thank you for the follow-up question. I think that's important for people to know and people to understand that we are currently doing cost-saving measures. I had mentioned earlier also, for example, moving up some of the maintenance projects that we have to do. We don't have a choice. And by moving it up on the schedule, we're actually getting some cost savings there. So there's a lot of things that we are doing right now in order to squeeze our budget as much as possible, so that we can prepare potentially for a budget impact.
Andy, question is relating to the blueprint for the UW system. what will be the impact on the city, region, state if some of the more drastic measures proposed take effect? I'm not real familiar with that, so maybe you can talk a little bit about the blueprint and its impact.
I'd be happy to. The blueprint for the UW system are really, it evolved from some concluding thoughts that President Ray Cross has as he's leaving office. As you know, we'll have a new president most likely in July or August at some point. And so these were comments that he had made to the Board of Regents that had sort of taken on a life of their own in terms of being codified into this plan. I guess the word blueprint would indicate that. What it looks at are three basic areas. One is the academic program array of all of the comprehensive institutions in the system. Those are your Whitewaters and Eau Claires and Oshkosh and Green Bays. It excludes Madison and Milwaukee. The second thing it looks at or something I think that your business committee would be very at ease with, and that is shared services. The idea that how many HR offices do we need? Can we just do one that's sort of consolidated in the center? And so there's a number of services that they're bringing together. UW Oshkosh actually is an early adopter to that. We've really leaned in, and we want to be one of the first and innovators in terms of utilizing shared services, because I think it saves money in the end. And then the third item is the robustness of our online program. Where the controversy really sort of lies here is with the academic program array, and that is that campuses have typically worried about this in terms of what programs we offer, are they doing well? The thinking now is, well, maybe the system should be more directive in that approach, and that we do a review. And the idea is that they may call out some redundant programs. I think a certain level of redundancy is important because the way people consume higher education these days is locally. The idea of going away from college is not a thing anymore. People go to college where they live. And so they want to have access to psychology and English and chemistry and education and nursing. They want those programs. And so the popular programs of redundancy is appropriate. The more esoteric programs, maybe not so much. So the timing is also an issue here, that the thinking is that we need to do this now. We need to do a robust academic program array analysis and do this now. It's been my counsel to the system president and others that we all need to focus 100% of our energy on what's happening next fall. We need to get our institutions open. We need to make sure that they're running well. We need to serve our students. I need to continue to thank the extraordinary faculty and instructional academic staff for the amazing work that they did of moving everything so rapidly to alternate delivery. So the blueprint, you're going to see that begin to, I think, evolve in the media and also from the system. I think it's going to be something which I think there's some good things in there. It's going to simply need more time and more participation from shared governance, shared governance is how we do business in higher ed, in that everybody on campus has a voice, and those voices need to be heard when we're moving big issues like this.
A little slow on the draw on that mute button for me, so sorry about that. Vickie, a two-part question relates to the virtual learning environment that K-12 is working under. First of all, what's been the feedback from parents? And the other question is, how long can we continue to work in a virtual environment before the quality of education is impacted?
So that's a very good question. And, what we have been hearing from was the response from our parents and our teachers. We've been receiving a lot of positive feedback for our students who are in our special education program, and especially related to some required meetings that they have to do, and how smoothly things have been running with staff and support staff involved and participating. We've been hearing from our parents and how we've been servicing our technology. They've been very grateful for the level of support that we're providing to them. We do get a range of responses, majority of them being positive. But we do know that, most of our students are thriving in that online environment. When there are some that are disengaging. So what we do is we ensure that we follow up when we're seeing that a student is not engaging with us online, and we reach out to those families and to that student to see what we can do in order to support them better. And is there something that we can help them to process through so that we can get them back into the online environment? Some families are so grateful for the flexibility that we provided this year for the at-home learning, while there are some others that would rather have more of a structured day-to-day teaching that's occurring. So as to what it's going to look like in the future, it'll probably look, if we have to go forward in the virtual environment starting in the fall, the look and feel of how we're providing education in that virtual environment will probably be a little bit different than it is right now. But those are some of the plans that I previously had mentioned that we're working on right now behind the scenes. So I really can't articulate specifically what that's going to look like just yet. But it is something that we are actively working on, and we know that there's some professional development that we want to work with our instructional staff on as well, in order to remain that flexible. There are, you asked the question, how sustainable is this? Well, quite frankly, this past year, the Oshkosh Area School District started a full-time virtual school through our E-Academy for high schools. For those students who are enrolled in that program, it is definitely maintained. They were able to stick with it, and it is something that you can definitely maintain. Full-time and virtual environment, again, it does not fit every student. That's why you have the flexibility. But for some students, they thrive in it. But it is something that we have been working towards. We started last school year working towards this, and then this year we started working. We implemented to put in a full-time virtual, and we were on track to actually do a full-time virtual for middle school students starting next school year as well. So we just kind of accelerated that significantly for the district and putting us into that environment right now.
Well, Vickie, here's I'm going to stick with you because a question that related to that came in. In terms of assessing how students are doing in terms of key academic skills, if they are falling behind, is there a way to assess that? And is there any opportunities for individualized instruction for students to catch up?
Well, that's the beauty of some of the programming that we have right now. So for example, our teachers have office hours. So that way that gives them the opportunity to reach out individually to students to provide some direct instruction if needed, or for families to reach out to the teacher if they have concerns and feel or want some additional help for that student on a given task. So those are some of the things that are happening. Once we get into, we're also taking advantage of some of our programs. So for example, with our elementary and middle school students, we have a program called Iready, which provides lessons online in mathematics as well as with reading. And it provides, it also within there adjusts according to how the students are progressing. So it gives that real-time type of adjustment for the lessons that students are participating with. In addition to that, we know that once we get back into a face-to-face environment, we will continue to do what we do, which is what we call progress monitoring. Progress monitoring is the use of a variety of different data points. It may be a variety of different assessments, Iready being one of them. And then making the adjustments according for our students in order for the ones who may need some catching up to get them caught up, and the ones who are right where they need to be, continuing with that path, and the ones who are advanced, again, also, how do we meet the needs of those students who may have accelerated?
Well, Andy, a question that's on everybody's mind, the upcoming football season. And, is there any guidance coming from the WIAC regarding the football season, other sports? And when will they announce that in terms of what will happen next fall or this fall?
Well, we're waiting for the Packers to decide. No, I'm just kidding. We actually, I am the chair this year of the WIAC council. So we are beginning to have those kinds of conversations. A lot depends on what happens with the NCAA. If in fact they decide to cancel the championships for fall sports, which would include Division I football, I might add. So that would be huge. If the NCAA cancels, then we are left with our own decision if we just simply want to play a conference schedule and not worry about the postseason. So I know right now the Chancellors we're interested in having football and all other sports, I should add, all of our sports play if at all possible, but at the same time, if it's not possible because of health considerations, we are certainly going to put the considerations above athletics in that way. So it really depends on if we're face-to-face in the fall. If we're online, then no. As I mentioned before, California State just canceled all of their athletics for the fall. It really depends on if we're face-to-face and what the level of social distancing is necessary to be safe. So that's probably where we're at. I, as much as anybody, would love to see our student athletes compete. They are really a joy to watch.
Vickie, I know a question that's on a lot of parents' minds and certainly affects employers. If we're going to have a better idea for the next school year, when is that going to be decided? How far in advance will employers be notified, and especially as it relates to childcare and those sorts of things? So I know you talked a little bit about that, but any other insight?
I would expect that more than likely the Chancellor and I are going to be pretty close in timeline wise as far as releasing that type of announcement. We'll know a lot more once we get into mid-July as to what that will potentially look like. In fact, a decision related to August activities, I'm looking to release that during the second week of July. And again, a lot of it is very dependent upon the guidance that we receive and from the Winnebago County Health Department as well. So good question. I wish I could say, yep, we'll have a decision made by such and such date. It's just such a fluid situation right now that I do not have that ability to give you a specific date. But again, also dependent upon, it's really dependent upon actions that occur within these next few days as well, at the state level as well as at the county level.
Well, and a follow-up to that came in. There's been some people suggest that the kids are children are less impacted by COVID-19 in terms of those populations that are vulnerable and that sort of thing. And there's some health experts have been saying that we should be reopening schools for K-12 schools for kids and having them come back and go through the regular process of herd immunity and things. What's your thought about that?
I think that there's a variety of opinions that are out there. To say that students or children are not impacted by this, I think especially the past 2 days, we're hearing now across the nation where doctors are recognizing that they are impacted by this, is leading to a very serious disease that typically is extremely rare, but we're definitely seeing it now in our children. Their children have died from this as well. So I would not necessarily say that they're immune to it. In addition to that, children oftentimes can be carriers, to this. We do need our adults in order to provide instruction. So this is not an isolated event to just children. And so I think those are some of the things that we have to take into consideration.
Okay, with that, we're hitting our 11 o'clock hour. We appreciate you both joining us, Dr. Cartwright and Dr. Leavitt. I think we got a lot of big challenges ahead of us, and people are certainly paying attention to what's going on here, and things are changing, a lot of moving parts. So Again, thank you for joining us. Next week, Thursday, we have Congressman Glenn Grothman joining us. He'll be live, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on. The House is pretty active. I believe the piece of legislation will be advanced through the House, I think, as soon as tomorrow. We'll see how that goes and where that goes from there. So, again, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for participating, and we will see you next week.